Friday. Welcome, folks. This is going to be your SITREP. It's 8/21/2025, coming to you live here from the Monkey Lounge in the great state of Texas. And so, hey, listen, before we get started, we're running up on hurricane season, hot and heavy in terms of the peak. September could be pretty bad when you look at what's going on out there in the Atlantic right now. It's shaping up to be a very active September. So look, let's talk about the satellite phone store. These are the guys you want to go to get your satellite phone. This is where I got mine. The first thing that goes out whenever you have any type of natural disaster, whether it's fires, whether it's hurricanes, tornadoes, it's the cell towers. They always take the hit, and you are left in the dark. You don't have the ability to reach out and touch someone. Get you a satellite phone. I'm telling you, you can call anywhere around the world on these things, and it doesn't take very long to connect. In fact, it's seconds, and it works just like your regular mobile phone. The only difference is you actually get to talk to somebody. So again, satellite phone store, you can jump over to sat123.com. That's sat123.com, or just put your phone over this QR code right here. It'll take you right to them. They've got some great deals for the Monkey Nation. You can get your MR Sat phone. That comes with a little Faraday bag. And then, of course, you've got also the Iridium. That's the one that I have right here. Fantastic satellite. And don't stop there. Look, when you start talking about Starlink, you start talking about your internet goes down, all you do is basically get a power source, you stick this in a window, and you're off to the races with internet, folks. So again, sat123.com, or give them a call, 941-841-0844, and tell them Monkey sent you. All right, folks, so look, we're going to take a look at the skies right now. What is up? What's going on? Just in our general everyday life, okay, we have got a very intrusive government. They watch and listen to everything that we do on a regular basis. You can see right here, these rings, these are visibility rings, and that's just assuming that at an altitude, that's how far they can actually reach. Now, I believe they have greater capabilities than these rings, and they're probably looking way, way beyond that distance. But they're not just looking, they're listening. They're gathering and snatching up everything that we do, okay? So these are going to be your intel balloons. Just an example, I mean, these right here are at 90,000 feet up. So commercial traffic, yeah, you're about 36,000. It's kind of the average. So way, way up there. Even if you were in a commercial aircraft looking up, very unlikely you would see these. Now, you got them up over Alaska. As you can see, about 40% of the United States in its entirety is covered up. I know we've got them over Hawaii. I know they're over the southeast. We just don't see them because they're not transmitting where we can see them right now. Also, you've got these that are all, grabbing additional data. This is going to be your Glex, LaSalle Aviation. They're a third-party intel company. All right, so they're out doing LiDAR and signal intelligence and all kinds of crazy stuff. Got them down in the Panhandle. You've got them here. So something to pay attention to, folks, because they are absolutely gathering everything they can on us. They're going to know every bit of your habit from a mass surveillance standpoint, who you interact with, where you go, what you buy. You know where it's all headed, folks. All right. Okay, now let's look at the 60s. These are going to be your Blackhawks. You'll notice very heavy border presence down here in the southern side of California. And then you'll notice here kind of along Louisiana, and then Texas, pretty active as well. The one area you don't really see a lot of it is the training area, which is the Panhandle. And then you can see they're spread out. 46 of the 60 Blackhawks, okay? Then you get into the KC-135s, and average is 25. I've got 33 on screen right now. Let me add to that. Let me drop down to these, add another bundle. We're at 44. So that's a pretty high number. 50 was how many we had up when the FAA system went black. All right. Take those back and away, and then look at the 47s. It's going to be your Chinooks. I've got 11 on screen, so you can see pretty active across the United States. Usually we don't see any more than maybe 4 to 6, sometimes 8, but pretty active. All right, P8's very busy here. coming out of Jacksonville Naval Air Station. Those are going to be your sub hunters. And then let's see, got a couple of Navy P3s that are out. Let me add that one. Now this is out over the danger box, Southern California. This is down over Florida. This is probably NASA NOAA related. And then we got a couple of Q series. Let me just bump this into an alphabetical run. A couple R135, some things that we should look at. Here's a Q, this one here, the Black Cat. More than likely that's Europe. We'll bounce over and look at that here in just 1 second. And then the R135s right directly below it. I've got 2. Now look at this. Throw the traces in on these, both of these actually. And you'll notice this one's coming out of Lincoln. This one's flying down to the southern border and getting ready to do some laps. So that is looking, side looking out here. Okay. I remember Trump did declare war against the cartels. And so it certainly looks like he is doing just that. I mean, we can see the fact that he's parked the United States Navy off the Venezuelan coast because of cartel threats. Maduro certainly doesn't like that. But let me go here. Black Cat, take us over here. And that's the one looking, that's a high altitude Q4 drone rolling in off, looking all the way from Lebanon all the way down into Egypt. Okay. All right. So speaking of that, let's go ahead and just start peeling it back, and then we'll get into the news because we're going to talk again about the Ukraine stuff, what's going on with Russia. I do believe it's a false peace, and I'll demonstrate that here in just a minute. Again, these are going to be your intel, surveillance, reconnaissance, looking very closely into Russia, into Moldova, Crimea. And then you can see this is looking more along the lines of Egypt, right? Versus, so they're probably worried about what's going on the other side of the border there. A little bit over, a little man in the middle there over South Georgia, it looks like. And then I'll show you the intel flights here in just a minute, right? You'll see this out over that particular region. But if you look at, again, go back over to this. Let me take us back over to CONUS. Get rid of these two. And you start to look. These are the flight patterns the last 24 hours for the GLEX or the third-party flights. And as you can see, they are pretty active. Let me see if I can just peel these back. And we go just a couple of GLEX. Now, not all of these are going to be LaSalle Aviation, but you can see this one down here headed kind of in the Gulf of America side of the house, probably looking very closely at what's going on here in the ports. And then this one, look at the flights just in the last 24 hours, right? So very, very busy. Okay. All right. So back over here, let's get to the drones. And you'll notice that the Chinese are actually very busy looking into South Korea out over the Yellow Sea. See a little bit of drone activity off Japan. Bounce down to Australia. Got nothing down under. Take us to the Middle East. Then again, we talked about the ships, all the tankers and everything sitting. I think they've got eyes on. They're watching this Strait of Hormuz very closely. Again, 20% of the world's oil passes right through that same area. And then here, more, right? We saw Black Cat looking into the sandbox, high altitude Q4 drone. Some low altitude stuff over the Med. Got nothing over Europe. We get over the U.S. and you'll notice off the eastern seaboard near Norfolk. And that's a high altitude Q4 drone, probably looking at ship traffic off the coast, off the East Coast. Little blip down there in Dothan, Alabama. Mexico's got their drones up. And then, of course, you can see a little border work there as well. That's going to be Q9, Customs Border Protection. Same thing with this one up here near Canada. All right, R135s. Notice, same location we were just looking with the intel flights. That tells you this is signal intelligence related, more than likely listening to ship traffic. The Ruskies are probably passing by or something there. And then same spot, you know, you got a broken trace headed out to the danger area off the left coast. And then you can see this, right? Signal intelligence. So it's listening for something either in South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, that kind of region, all right? Maybe the Black Hills. So clearly, an area of concern for them because we've been watching them do this for a while. All right, let's add to it nuclear security. Now notice this one out of Vegas. Then you got this off the left coast, very close to San Francisco, just south of it. Again, nuclear security. All right. Then you can see that flight that transitions from, looks like kind of right there between Georgia, South Carolina. That's a nuclear facility there, up to Washington State. Then a little blip over the border. Again, nuclear security. Now, speaking of nuclear security, you talk about AWACS. This is going to be the big daddy of nuclear security. This thing is out, goes dark over the Gulf of America. The reason it goes dark is because they don't want you knowing where they're looking and what they're doing, what pattern they're flying, because the pattern tells you whether they're looking or listening. And then, of course, you can see this over Europe as well. Kind of a broad brush. And then a little blip there. Looks like the little man in the middle stuff from the French. Right over the heart of the plate there. Okay. Now, back over here, notice it's pretty quiet in the Middle East. But back over here, let me just show you what the nuke aircraft here have been doing over the U.S. This is going to be the R-135 Constant Phoenix. Looks like it did a little bit of sniffing across just the heart of the plate of the United States. All right, you can see those long flights. And they're just taking in samples of the air, looking for something that shouldn't be there. Right. Okay. Now, let's get into the news side of it. Now, these are the GLEX. These are all your intel flights operating just in a single day out of Biggs Army Airfield. But let's get into the news. All right. So Pope Leo prays for success in peace efforts. All right. Now, remember, the Bible tells us that it says, and it's very clear, when it says peace and safety, right? It doesn't say when there is peace and safety, okay? It means that it's an illusion. It's a talked about thing, right? But it's not going to happen, right? It's a false peace. So when they're talking and saying peace and safety, sudden destruction comes upon them. So don't fall for it. This is a false peace that everybody's pushing. Now, if you don't think that they're pushing peace and everybody's talking about it, think about this. Trump has been in office for a second term here for not even 8 months, okay? Because it's August, but he didn't roll in there till the end of January, okay? So, but we are just give or take, okay? Let's just say for the sake of argument, 8 months, okay? He has been talking about peace and safety like nobody's business. In fact, if you look, and it's not just him, if you look at the amount of posts that people are talking about it, this is July, October. This is October 2024, all right? In 2024. So yeah, we could say it's just a good solid track record here. But every one of these are posts on social media calling for peace by either Trump or the White House or the GOP or other individuals, okay? It's on the tongues of everybody. It's on the White House website. You got Bahrain's king and talking about the Abraham Accords, okay? So now this accord, this is going to be a covenant, all right? And that's the one you got to watch for. That'll be, I don't think these are one and the same. I think it won't get to this yet. It's getting close, very close. But these are just absolutely peace, 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 okay? To further illustrate that point, let me take you over here. Let me just show you. These are just a little collage of articles I've grabbed that have been pretty recent, all right? All talking about peace, okay? This is unprecedented, folks. This is a time in history that we have not seen this type of push for peace on a global scale ever. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. And you just pay attention to it because, like I said, it's going to be a false peace. All right. So let's get into, again, here over into another article. Now, this is on RT. Peace in Ukraine will destroy the EU establishment. This may be an indicator why the peace will not gain traction because, truthfully, Europe doesn't really want to see, I mean, the EU, the NATO guys, they don't want to see peace. All right. We know that. They've been pushing for war with Russia, but they're trying to get the United States engaged. That is the key to this. And so you're going to see with the United States that we're taking the bait. Okay, we're going to get sucked into this. And I think that is what's going to propel us into this. You know, everybody's going to think it's peace, and it's actually going to be the opposite direction. In fact, everything that I've tracked, they are complete opposites of each other. You've got everybody talking about peace, but everybody's showing their hand at going to war, okay? So this article just says that, this will basically, just the peace push in Ukraine will actually destroy the EU establishment. And, may not be far off, all right? And so look at just the global map. When you start talking about the NOTAMs and TFRs, right? Notice to airmen, that's what pilots get when they're flying, so they know not to fly into certain areas, or if they do, to contact tower to let them know they're in those certain areas. TFRs, temporary flight restrictions. A lot of these are danger boxes like this, all of this. You've got exercises and operations, but just back up for a second and look at the world right now. Even the United States, we got danger boxes up both coasts. We've got this stuff going on. These are exercises and operations up in Alaska. It's everywhere. So people are, militaries are spending record amounts, and we are training, and everybody's preparing for war. The whole time we're doing this, everybody's talking about peace. Okay. Like I said, it's a false peace. Okay. Then you look at the Brits nonstop, parking stuff up here in this northern end of North America. You've got them out here in Cyprus. That's one of their forward operating bases, in and out of Germany. All right. And that's just the Brits on one day. And they're doing this, 7 days a week. All right. And then you've got U.S. Transportation Command in and out of Cairo, in and out of Kuwait. They're hot and heavy in Bahrain. We've got flights down over the Mediterranean, in and out of Germany. So you've got Ramstein and Stuttgart. Okay. We're operating very heavily. You remember Trump said at one point, we're going to pull all my troops back. That was just a fake, a head fake to NATO, because he was forcing NATO to start stepping up in fulfilling their end of the obligation, because the United States is footing the bill for all of this. All right. And so he's like, you guys got to get to I think it was 4 or 5% of GDP. And they're all saying, we can't get there. They're not even getting to 3%. The United States is paying for the brunt of their security in Europe. So, and I've shown you the flights. People aren't coming out. In fact, they're going in. And it doubled down when he said he was talking about taking troops out. We had reports and video of trains headed to the ports with all NATO equipment, and actually American equipment headed to Europe. And, and I'm talking all kinds of ground strike packages that were headed that way. So we're building up. We're not taking down. Then you get over here to Ramstein. You're going to notice 747 rolls in from Baltimore. And then where does it go? Middle East, Kuwait, Cairo, and then Doha. So we continue to just push things into the Middle East. It's not going the opposite direction. It's headed to war. It's not going to peace, okay? Now, RZE Poland, this is an interesting one because we watch it closely, and I will tell you the United States has not put big stuff on to the forward operating base in quite some time. But if indeed Trump puts air power into Ukraine, then you're going to start to see some pretty big packages roll in because they're going to have to get all the maintenance stuff, logistics, everything that ties to keeping those aircraft active and flying in a combat environment. You're going to have to put a lot of assets into play to keep that going, right? So you'll have maintenance wings coming in. You'll have a lot of spare parts. And so you can't have downtime waiting for parts. You got to get everything out there so that you can keep things flying. So looks like currently today just got the German Air Force coming in from Constanta. Not super busy on the board. A lot of these other flights that you see here are going to be commercial flights in and out because it's a dual operating base location. But if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, it's RZE Poland. It's down here in the bottom corner. This right here is the Ukrainian border. So it would be a forward operating base, and it puts us pretty close to being able to get in the air to run some type of combat air patrol. All right. Okay. Now, again, the world is headed in a different direction. Take a look at this. Syria's Shara government preps 50,000 troops for a large anti-Kurd offensive in the northeast. Now, this has a lot of implications because now you start talking about Turkey, you start talking about Iran, you start talking about Iraq. The Kurds, that's a whole different, when it comes to Middle Eastern stuff, the Kurds, that's a different, that's just the dynamics around all of that. It has touch points all over the place. So this could get really interesting. 50,000 troops is a big number, folks. So for Syria to be pushing that, that's a pretty big deal, okay? All right. And then, of course, you can see the locations right up here in the red. Okay. It says here, the SDF has an agreement in principle to integrate into the Syrian military, though it has been slowed by disagreements over the process. The U.S. has been critical of the SDF for delays, and Envoy Tom Barak has warned the Kurds that federalism doesn't work and they must accept integration. So for the past decade, the U.S. has repeatedly backed the SDF against ISIS. Now it seems they are increasingly aligned with Shara and with President Trump, praising him as strong and attractive. By the way, this guy, I believe this is the one that had an $8 million bounty for his head. And now all of a sudden, you were praising him because he was a terrorist and on a wanted list. So we're praising him. Yeah. That had to raise a few eyebrows. Okay. All right, look at this. Trump says American planes in the air, but no boots on the ground for Ukraine security mission. Like I said, we're getting sucked into this, folks. Pay attention because this isn't just your tax dollars getting ready to go in. When you start putting U.S. assets in the air into a war zone to maintain peace, all it takes is something to trip, and it's on like Donkey Kong. Very slippery slope. And this is exactly what NATO wants. And they probably are just licking their chops, can't believe that we have actually taken the bait. So we will see just exactly how far this goes, but I would not be surprised if we end up with boots on the ground and air superiority as well. Okay. All right. Now just let this sink in for a second. Mind you, that the war in Ukraine has only been going on for 4 years, all right? If this number is accurate, which it probably is, that Ukraine has lost over 1.7 million troops. To put that in perspective, the Vietnam War totals based on DoD data, 58,282 or something like that, all right? Vietnam, which was one of our worst wars ever, all right? I mean, just just seemed like it went on forever, all right? 58,000, which was a lot, right? People were really, it seemed like the amount of aircraft coming in with bodies on them was just insane. So you think about this, they've lost over 1.7 million troops. Do the comparison between the two. That's just a crazy number. Absolutely crazy. So, all right. Now, the casualties are allegedly detailed in a digital card index of the country's armed forces obtained by Russian hackers. That's pretty bad. The entry suggests that since the escalation of the Ukraine conflict in 2022, right, Kiev's forces have lost a total of 1.721 million servicemen. That's 118.5 thousand were apparently killed in 2022, 405,000 in 2023, 595,000 in 2024, and a record 621,000 in just this year so far. And it's, again, we're 8 months in. All right, over here. Now, we talked about the fact the United States has said, no boots on the ground, we'll fly airplanes around. But I will tell you this, we're getting ready. NATO's going to have boots on the ground. It's just a matter of time. U.S. is going to be in there as well. All right, Merz leaves the door open for German peacekeeping troops in Ukraine after the Washington summit. It says Germany has a great responsibility to participate in efforts to provide security guarantees for Ukraine as part of the peace deal with Russia. So it's not just them. There are others that are also, I mean, you saw how many people were at the White House, which, by the way, that meeting at the White House was unprecedented. Like, that's never occurred in the history of the world or the country. To have a president summon all of these world leaders and they show up, like they clear their calendars and show up, that's pretty remarkable, folks. All right. Now, again, the EU and NATO, they need to have the United States engaged in this. They have to. They can't fight this war on their own. So for Trump to go in and say, we'll throw in our airplanes and we'll do air superiority, do a little combat air patrol, opens a door for this thing to be slippery slope. And it also opens a door for something major to kick off. And like I said, when they say peace and safety, all right, it's a false peace and safety. It's not going to stick, folks. All right. Now, I've shown you all of the other stuff that's going on. You got Syria, 50,000 troops. You've got all of these different pockets of fighting happening, right? So, again, everybody's talking peace and safety, but out on this side of their mouth, they're doing just the opposite. Everybody's preparing for war or fighting a war, right? Israel prepares forced transfer of civilians in Gaza City amid reoccupation push. Now, I will tell you from what I read just recently, they're getting ready to go in. I've mentioned the fact that the U.S. has a ton of assets all around the area. It doesn't seem likely that we would put our fighters on ground within range of the Iranian missiles in Saudi, that we would keep them further back. In fact, we'd probably put them into Turkey because Iran and Turkey have that trilateral agreement with Russia. So very unlikely that they would attack us and our aircraft up there in Incirlik. You know, I think that's probably the safe spot. Jordan's probably safe as well. But all indicators are that this right here is about to go a big, big push. The other piece, too, is there's a lot of rhetoric happening right now between Israel and Iran. So if Israel pushes into this, like they say they're going to do, and they continue doing what they're doing, you may see a response from Iran again, which would also pull us in. All right. So, the world we live in, man, it's amazing. And if you would have said to me 10 years ago that we would be looking at all of this happening at our doorstep, you know, you've got Navy ships north of Venezuela, which is posturing big time against Maduro. And we've got this tariff standoff with Brazil. You've got all of this animosity going with China and Taiwan. Everything's hot and heavy in the Middle East. And then you got the whole Russia-European piece. It's like history is repeating itself. It's just the wheels seem to be coming off. There's no two ways about it. So anyway, folks, listen, faith over fear. Ain't nothing you and I can do to change it. So just keep your chin up and keep looking up. All right. Keep that powder dry. Stay frosty. We'll see you soon. God bless. Monkey out.